Thank you very much. Thank you very much also for the invitation today. I'm glad to be here. I'm very proud of being here, and I want also to thank all the speakers before me and also after me, because they gave great speeches and also fueled this conversation with meaningful interventions. So I'm Valentina. I work in Utrend, which is a Quorum Utrend. I'm an analyst. Utrend is a private firm. We do mainly research, but we are also a media company, and also we are a communication agency. So today I'm talking about how we use open data and how open data impact in my work, which is the one of an analyst. I'm working mainly with survey research and also desk analysis and qualitative interviews, but mainly on survey research, and how open data can help us enhance research accuracy. So first of all, why we conduct surveys? Usually for 3 reasons. The first one is to understand the public perception, and this is a kind of data we can't have if we don't interview directly people, because it's really hard to harvest data on how people perceive, how people feel about things without interviewing themselves first. I know that in a previous intervention by Mrs. Bordignon, we already mentioned surveys, so I suppose we are quite, we all know what a survey is, and also know how it can help us also address a specific research question, because sometimes it's really difficult to address a research question. We don't have data ready to address that kind of research question, and surveys are an easy way, quick way, and also quite frugal, economically speaking, way to address those questions, also by filling gaps. We know existing data, maybe we don't have the situation to collect those data, and so we conduct a survey which is easier and quicker, as I said. And it's also important to focus on the 3 foundations of survey analysis in order to understand how open data can help us get better at doing survey and also have more reliable results. And those are the 3 main processes in which open data are involved, which are stratification, weighting, and post-stratification. Stratification means dividing the population, the population we want to know about, in strata, subgroups. And we can't know the subgroups if we don't know the population. For example, ISTAT provides data for crossed gender and sex, for example. Also, and this is the first part, the part we do before conducting the survey, but when we have the sample prepared with the stratification, we also do weighting and post-stratification, which are conducted after the interviews are concluded. Weighting a survey means making sure our sample is representative of the whole population, and post-stratification is similar because we adjust response in order to, again, make sure we are actually seeing the results for the whole population and not only a part of it. And without open data, those methods are impossible. But the challenge is not only weighting in general, weighting as a method, but also understand what we should weighting for. Because identifying the relevant variables to weight for is as important as weighting itself. And I will bring you today an example, which is an example of low accuracy due to weighting choices, poor weighting choices. And it's quite a quite famous one. I think many of you already heard about it, which is the USA presidential election in 2016. As an example, I bring this graph, which is from a report on the evaluation of surveys in 2016, and you see 2 different graphs in the same image. The first one is about the New Hampshire vote. The second one is about the Michigan vote. The first bar, with 0%, is the actual difference between Trump lead and Clinton lead. And as you see, in both New Hampshire and Michigan, the lead is basically 0. But it's not the same in the surveys that were conducted. For example, we have the UNH survey for New Hampshire, which is adjusted for education, which means education as a variable was considered in order to make sure our sample was actual representative of the population, and we see 0. While the original poll, which was not weighted for education, showed a Clinton lead of 11%, which means that changing the weighting variable, adding the weighting variable as education, reduced of 11% the Clinton lead. 11%, if you're familiar with surveys, know that is far away from the normal margin of error, which usually in this kind of surveys is between, I don't remember exactly for this one, but usually it's between 2 and 5%. So we have a really huge error. And we see the same in Michigan, where we had, well, Clinton, at least in this case, in the second case, was leading 10%, but she was supposed to, according to this survey, of course, not waiting for the education, was supposed to lead by 17%, which means a 7% margin, which is, as you understand, really, really high. But we know about it, and we correct for it now. In this graph, I show you the changes in weighting variables from 2016 to 2024. And as you can see, well, the green dot is the 2016, the percentage of polls that were waiting for that variable. As you can see, weighting was already really high for age, race, gender, but increased very much for education, party, and also past vote, which means who the people were voting in the previous election. And as you can see, we have also an evaluation of the effect of each weighting variable, included or not included. And maybe it's a bit little, but you can see that the red ones are education, urban, suburban, or rural, so the dimension of the area you are residing in. And also party affiliation lean towards Trump, which means that avoiding waiting for education, residence area, and party affiliation would have led to an advantage, a fake advantage for Trump, while the 2020 presidential vote leads towards Harris. That's clear. So this is the effect, what changes in including or not including each variable. We also have an example of open data we used every day, basically, because in Europe it's quite common to wait for past vote. And we can do so in Italy. I wanted to bring an example of the Italian context through the data that are available on Eligendo, which is the website that is managed by the Ministry of the Interior, which in this case does both the harvesting of the data, because they collect it, and also the diffusion, because I was thinking about the previous intervention by Ms. Barnsoler, which was saying that Open Data Hub collects the data and they share it, make them available. In this case, instead, Ministry of the Interior does both things, because of course it's public. The question is that enough? Because I brought you an example of something we are already doing. We are already waiting for past vote through the data made available by the Ministry of the Interior. But the context matters a lot, because we know about those correlations. Now, American pollsters know that education has an impact on predicted voted. And we know about those correlations, so we know that young people tend to be more pro-environment, women tend to be more left-leaning, high education levels often correlates with greater political engagement, and so on. But what about the correlation we don't know about? And that's why open data are not only useful when we try to weight, stratify, post-stratify a survey, but also to check our results. And so here I present some kind of question we can we can ask ourselves when we do surveys, because in our work, it's often the case that we do ongoing projects, which are small. We do research, and each research is different from the previous one. So each time we need to ask, is there something we are not seeing? Is the result of our survey actually reflecting what we see in data that we already have? And so just a few questions we can have. For example, if we would make a survey about mobility, we could ask ourselves, how many people drive cars? And this is a question we can answer through open data. Because, for example, if for some reason in my sample there are really few people that drive cars, and I'm doing a survey about mobility, in the opinion of mobility, the problems of mobility, of course, the opinion of those people who are driving cars that are subrepresented would be a minority, when in fact perhaps they are the majority, and so on. So this is a brief view of our work and why I think open data is essential for enhancing the accuracy of research and also credibility of research based on surveys. What I want to add also is that it's very interesting to hear the other species, because for the moment, they all seem very vertical, while I think mine was more horizontal, because in my work, working for an agency, a private firm that is giving consultancy, is providing research for others, actually we touch many points. And I think that's quite interesting to know more about your firms and what you are doing, also to inspire our work more. Thank you.